Good afternoon. On behalf of AAW Board Member and Director of Professional Development, Neil Otto, it's my pleasure to welcome you to another webinar hosted by the American Association for Employment and Education. Today's topic is, of course, I apologize. Today's topic is 5 truths every new teacher needs to hear. My name is Tim Newbert, and I serve as AAW's Executive Director. Please allow me to cover just a few housekeeping matters before we begin with today's topic. During the webinar, all attendees will be muted by default. However, you are encouraged to submit your questions, comments, or responses throughout the presentation via the chat tool within Zoom. When using chat, you are encouraged to change the recipient default to all presenters and attendees to maximize participation. This webinar is being recorded and will be made available to attendees and AAWE members. If you are not currently a member of AAWE, please visit our website, aaee.org, for more information. We are a professional association intent on positively impacting education through professional connections. Related to that mission, we connect the 3 critical groups involved with the preparation, recruitment, and retention of pre-K through 12 educators: university professionals and others who prepare educators, school system professionals and others who recruit, hire, and retain them, and of course, educator candidates themselves. We offer annual publications such as the Job Search Handbook for Educators. We conduct an educator supply and demand survey each fall and winter, resulting in a spring report, which is coming soon. We host a pre-K through 12 job board and calendar of education job fairs held around the country. We host webinars such as this one on topics relevant to our membership. We sponsor teacher scholarships and school system mini grants to support teacher pipelines. We host an annual conference and education career fair each fall. And we host teacher job fairs such as our virtual event to Thursday, June 10th. Joining me today is Dr. Sam Fecich, a professor of education from Grove City College in Pennsylvania and author of EduMagic, a guide for pre-service teachers, and EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers. She's also host of the EduMagic podcast. Through this session, Dr. Sam will seek to help you as a beginning teacher thrive during your first year of teaching by asking you to reflect, challenge yourself, and celebrate wins in and out of the classroom. Thanks for joining us today, Dr. Sam. I'll now turn it over to you.
Hey, Tim. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday morning. Hope you have a fresh cup of coffee. We are ready to rock and roll today. So I dropped on over in our chat the link to the little free ebook that goes alongside our presentation today. I decided to try something new. Usually I do a Padlet or a Jamboard, but I thought to myself, you know what? I think I'm going to try making an ebook to go along with today's presentation for spots for you to reflect as we go along. So I dropped that over in the chat. You can find it there. It's a little form that will send right to your inbox. If you have Canva, you can use it as a template and you can just use that and just edit throughout, or you can download it as a PDF and edit it in whatever PDF editor you like Kami or Adobe, whatever you like. Let's jump in for today's session. So today's session, 5 truths every teacher needs to know, is based upon the book EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers, where it goes through eight of them. But today we're just going to talk about 5. And I'm really excited about this because I'm going to be sharing some stories that I learned along the way, and maybe some things I wish I would have known whenever I was a beginning first year teacher. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments, feel free to drop me an email over at sfecich@gmail.com. Or you can find me over on Twitter at sfecich and also on Instagram at sfecich. Keep it the same throughout. And Tim, thanks so much for the awesome intro. I am a professor at Grove City College, where I get to teach future teachers all about ed tech and special ed. I'm the author of 2 books, one for pre-service teachers and one for new teachers. And then, host of a podcast, because why not? Because it's a lot of fun. That's why. And so let's jump in today. So if you have the ebook alongside our presentation today, please feel free to open it up and start thinking about what what does it mean to be a new graduate? So for us, we just had graduation on Saturday. And for some of our graduates that walked across the stage at graduation, they had jobs, they're ready to go. For some of our graduates, they were in the interview process. And for others, they didn't start the job search just yet. And that's okay. All those areas are perfectly fine. And friends, when you cross that stage at graduation, if you don't have a job yet, you're still a great teacher. It's okay if you graduate in May and you don't get a job till August. You need to find the right fit for you, the right fit for you as a teacher personally, professionally, and then because that's just going to shine through in your classroom, in your school, and in your district. So don't just take a job to take a job and pay off loans. You really need to find a good fit for you. So in the book we talk about one of our co-authors, Hannah, she shares how she took a teaching job. She was given several options and she chose one that was close to home, good pay, and all that stuff. But what she didn't know about her first teaching her first year teaching was the amount of transient students that came into the district. She didn't know about the high teacher turnover. She didn't know a lot about the mentorship program, which there wasn't one at the school for new teachers. When she graduated, she's like, I got this. I am good to go. I was an all-star student. I got all A's. I know how to do the things. But when she went into the classroom, all these new things were thrown at her, and she was not feeling very prepared. So whenever you're a new teacher, you're going to feel all these different emotions. And you know what? It's okay. It's perfectly normal. You're going to feel so excited some days that your face hurts from laughing and smiling. You're going to feel so sad some days because you're going to be crying in your car, and everything in between. And you can feel multiple emotions at the same time. And that's okay. So I would love for you guys to think about, if you're over on our ebook, think about what are some feelings that you are feeling when it comes to thinking about being a first year teacher. I know we're probably feeling like that mixed emotion. You know how you're in line at a roller coaster and it's a new one and you're excited, but you're a little nervous, but you don't want to say you're nervous. You're just, I'm really excited about this. But it's okay to be nervous. It's okay to feel anticipation or some anxiety towards your new teaching job. You can also feel inspired by those who are around you in your school, your district. You can feel inspired by teachers who you've had in the past who have helped to bring you up to where you are. You can feel motivated and you want to get all the pins on Pinterest for your classroom decor and classroom organization all ready to go. So you're getting all your materials ready, feeling motivated and hardworking. You're looking through the curriculum, you're looking through all the books that you're going to be using. And then at the same time, you're also, there's so much to do. How do I prepare for my first year? And friends, remember, it's all normal. Everybody goes through it. That first year of teaching, and maybe your second and third year, you're gonna have these feelings come up. I don't know about you, but every semester, the night before the semester, I always I can't sleep because I'm too excited. I'm too nervous. First of all, I'm nervous I'm going to go into the wrong classroom. That actually happened to me my first year as a professor. I walk into the classroom, have everything all set up. I have an 8 a.m. class. I'm in there at 7:30, get everything ready. And like, hey, welcome to Tech of Instruction. And one girl raises her hand and I say, yeah. And she goes, I don't think this is Tech of Instruction. I'm like, I think it is. It was. I was in the right spot. She was in the wrong spot. But that feeling, oh no. And so it happens to everybody, and that is okay. So know that your feelings are valid. It's okay. We're going to work through them in your new teacher journey. So here are our agenda items for today. We're going to talk about expectations. Expectations for yourself as a teacher and expectations for your students. Understanding that disappointments will happen. I do have a pretty heavy story to share in that one, so just preparing you for that. Knowing that you are unstoppable. Those disappointments that we're going to talk about, those are like pit stops along your teacher journey. Your teacher journey is going to be long and windy, and sometimes you're going to veer off and go in a different exit. Sometimes you might need to do a pit stop, and that's what our disappointments are. They're a pit stop. We don't stay there long. We learn from them, and then we keep going in our journey. That's why you're unstoppable. And we're going to talk about ways to help you be an unstoppable educator. It's also important to remember your why and know that your why might change throughout your journey. And if you listen to my podcast or you know my story, you know that my why has changed a lot. And so we're going to talk about that. And that's okay if your why changes. Just knowing why you're coming into classrooms each day, impacting students in your classroom, in your school, and in your district. And then we're going to talk about getting a plan together, because I know that those summertime scaries are true. Like you're like, oh my gosh, what should I prepare? What should I do? What should I pin? How should I organize all my stuff? We're going to give you some tips for that as well. All right. So hopefully you guys have that ebook ready to rock and roll, because here we go. We're going to have some reflection points throughout our presentation today. Okay. So it's important to think about, as you cross that stage of graduation, you got your diploma, you're ready to roll. Maybe you're packing up your car and you're going to be moving across the country, or maybe you're moving just to the next town over. It is okay to be thinking about those expectations that you have for yourself. Just because you cross that stage does not mean that your learning has stopped. Oh my goodness, it's honestly, as a teacher, it's just beginning, because you get to impact students in so many different ways. It's an amazing legacy that you get to lead and leave in the world. So as a teacher, I truly believe it is the best profession on the planet. So be thinking about your expectations that you have for yourself. And summer is a great time to reflect upon those. Reflect, what are some of your expectations that you have for yourself as a teacher in your classroom? So think about that. What kind of teacher do you want to be with your students? I know whenever I'm filling out this reflection, what a kind of teacher that I want to be, some expectations I have for myself for my fall semester is to build relationships with students, getting to know my students individually, not only as future teachers coming into my classroom, but what are they doing as students? What clubs are they involved in? What organizations do they do? Do they do any volunteer work? What's their major? Why do they want to explore that area? So one of my big expectations for myself as a teacher, so that I can model that for my students, is to get to know them beyond that Google interest survey, beyond that student interest survey that we use on Google or Microsoft Forms, but really digging deep into those relationships. And then next, think about your expectations as a leader, because yes, as a first year teacher, friends, you are a leader in your school. Think about that. So when I think about leader, I think about what are some areas in which I'm glowing in? What are some areas that, people come to me for? They're like, hey, you're the tech person. How do I do this? Or hey, you're the STEM person. How do I do this? Think about those areas that people ask you about. Those are your glow areas. And think about, how do you want to lead in that area for your school or your district? As a new teacher, as a first year teacher, friends, you can lead PDs, you can do webinars. Just let people know your awesomeness and write those down. So what are some areas in which you are a leader for your school, your district? And then also think about, I would put that page maybe into two columns: for my school or district, and then what are some ways I'm going to be a leader for my students? So for example, whenever I was going back to school as a first year teacher, I think it was a second year teacher, sorry. I received my master's degree, and I let my students know, hey, I'm a student too, and I'm learning along the way. I'm learning to be a better teacher so I can serve you better and be the best teacher that I can be for you. That's why I'm learning all these new strategies and methods and techniques, and continuing my education. Which brings me to my next one, a learner. Like I said, when we cross that stage of graduation, learning does not stop. It just keeps going. And that's really exciting. I know for me, I love to watch a new webinar or listen to a podcast or participate in a Twitter chat or listen in on a Clubhouse room or an Instagram live on something around teaching that's going to help feed my teaching soul. So I love being a learner and sitting back and just thinking about those ideas and those methods, what other people are doing in their classrooms, reflect upon it. How could I use that in my own classroom? So this is a great spot for you to be thinking about as a learner. What are some areas in which you want to grow? Because friends, when you are a first year teacher, nobody expects you to be perfect. Let me repeat that for those in the back. Nobody expects you to be perfect. And nobody is perfect. Friends, there are veteran teachers who have taught for 15, 20, 25, 30 years who still have lessons that don't go well. And that is okay. It's okay. Friends, you're going to have lessons that you've planned and planned, and they just didn't go well. And that's all right. And you're going to have lessons where you're like, well, let's try this. And they go fantastically. You're like, whoop, whoop, that's awesome. So celebrate that. But anyway, think about some areas in which you want to grow. So for me, as a new teacher, I wanted to grow in the area of educational technology and assistive technology. So those are two areas in which I really wanted to learn more about and really hone my skills. So I went and I pursued certifications and I pursued a master's degree. I watched a ton of webinars about this topic. So I encourage you to think about what are some areas in which you want to grow, set those expectations for yourself as a learner, a leader, and a teacher. And then think about your students in the classroom. What are your expectations for your students? I know that kind of goes a little bit into classroom management and student behavior, but think about that. What are your expectations for your students? Is your classroom going to be student centered? Is there voice and choice in the classroom? What are your expectations for your students as learners? And as leaders in your classroom, because I don't know about you, but I learn from my students each semester, whether it is the latest TikTok dance, I will admit that, but I've learned some really cool strategies from them as well. So we can always learn from our students. So we have on your ebook, there's some reflection piece for you guys to be thinking about. But when we sit back and we think about our first year, our dream classroom, we picture what it looks like, what it feels like, what our students feel like in our classroom, how we are greeting our students, what the decor looks like, how our classroom's set up. We envision those areas of our classroom, and I think we start doing that, in our freshman sophomore year of college. We figure out, hey, we want to be a teacher. We start to envision all these things about what our classroom is going to be like. We kind of set up these expectations for ourselves, and you know what, they might not hold true, and that is okay. Your classroom is not going to be Pinterest perfect, nor should it be your first year. You can have a theme, and that's great, but please don't strive to have a Pinterest perfect classroom. You need to be thinking about having your classroom space as a space for students to connect, to collaborate, to create, to learn, and to engage in that learning process. Okay, so we have a couple of reflection pages over on your ebook. So be thinking about your expectations for yourself as a teacher, as a leader, and as a learner. And when we think about ourselves as a leader, yeah, we can be leaders in the classroom, but we can also be leaders in our schools and in our districts too, and really build up that community within our school and within our districts. And then expectations to yourself as a learner. What are some areas in which you want to grow and continue to learn about, because we know learning is something that is never done. All right, disappointments happen. Friends, we can all relate to this, right? With COVID, maybe we didn't have our ideal student teaching placement. Maybe we didn't have our ideal field work, or maybe we were in a virtual classroom all semester. We didn't get a real, which is not true. You did have a real student teaching experience. It just wasn't a traditional one, and that is okay. Honestly, I think that this experience really, if you did something virtual or hybrid, really prepares you to be flexible, to think on your feet, to problem solve, to critically think, to think creatively, which are all fantastic things you want to mention in that job interview, right? All right. So disappointments happen. We've all been through that in COVID. We've missed out on things, but we've also gained a lot of different perspective as well. So it's really important to reflect upon your first year. Now think about this. I know we talk about reflection in your lesson planning, and that's really important. You got to think about, did my students learn what I thought they learned? How was my pacing? How was were my resources? Did I have enough of my resources? Were they on target with what I wanted my students to do? Did the students engage with the technology? All those things that we think about when we reflect upon our lesson. But we also have to reflect upon, overall, as a teacher, how did our day go? And like I said, we're going to have days where our face hurts from smiling so much. And we're going to have days where we're crying in our car and everything in between. And we're going to have those days, not just as a first year teacher, all throughout. And that is okay. So I encourage you to have a notebook or have a space where you can reflect upon the wins, that you've had in the classroom, some teacher wins, and reflect upon some things that can go a little bit better. So, for example, some teacher wins you might reflect upon is, did that student, finally raise their hand and share in class today, even those small wins. So when I was a special education teacher, I worked in a multiple disabilities class, and some of the small wins that we celebrated were eye contact, were communication. Uh, Maintaining communication or initiating communication with their communication devices, touching their picture on the screen and having it go to something. So, like, we had lots of different small wins that we would celebrate, and then then I would reflect and think about, okay, well, what can I do better next time? What are some things in which I want to journal about? So, for example, one student really liked this book called Scupper the Sailor Dog. So I wanted to make a mental note of that, and with working with his parents, we had his dad record on a communication device the story of Scupper the Sailor Dog. So whenever he would interact or do an IEP goal, he would get to listen to his dad reading the book, and that was really motivating for him. So reflecting, like thinking about like those little moments in the day, like, okay, I got to make sure I get this done, and I want to reach out to this person, but also reflect on things that went well, your teacher wins, and things that can be improved upon, or just some quick ideas that you have. So have a little spiral notebook ready to go that you can just write some of those ideas down, and you can reflect upon that. In the book, we talk about, all three of us share some different disappointments that happened during our first year. And one of mine was something that college could have never prepared me for. Like I said, I worked in a multiple disabilities classroom, and over the summer of my first year teaching, I taught for 1 year, and I think I had 8 or 9 students in my class. And after the school year was over, one of my students had passed away, and they don't teach you how to work through that in college. That's something that I think you don't need to experience, but it's something that um, experience will help you heal with. So some ways that I worked through that was to work with the family and create a memorial video for the student to be played when the school year started. And the student really, he loved reading and he loved books. He had bookshelves and bookshelves of books. So his parents donated all the books to the school, which was really cool. So we were able to create this space called Michael's Library, and teachers and students come in and check out books, which was awesome. And that kind of kept his memory alive there at the school, which was really neat. So, like I said, there'll be days where your face hurts from smiling. For example, we did the Wizard of Oz play for all the administration and parents one day, and then there'll be days like that where you get a phone call and you just can't stop crying in your car. And there's going to be everything in between. And these experiences happen. We just need to think about how are we going to react to those experiences? And I'm looking over at my office. This is my first presentation I've done in my office, and I'm looking straight ahead at the camera, and right beyond the camera is a picture of that student. I like to keep him in my office because it just reminds me of all the fun things that we've learned and things that we've done together. All right, so let's get out of this pit stop. Like I said, disappointments, they're going to happen. They can come in lots of different areas. So, for example, another author talks about how she found out about child abuse, and she had to report that. And another author talks about, a lesson that totally just did not go well in any aspect of this lesson. And, we talk about different ways that we've worked through these. So these disappointments will happen. We will work through them, and we will be stronger on the other side. So, working through your disappointments, another really good resource is to reach out to other educators, veteran teachers who have been there, done that, got the t-shirt type deal. Reach out to your PLN, join those Facebook groups, get connected on Twitter and Instagram, listen to podcasts for teachers by teachers. And continue to learn and grow and shape yourself as a teacher, because working through those disappointments, having people to talk to, having people to reflect with is very important to help you grow as a teacher. All right, so those disappointments are pit stops. We're going to keep going on our teacher journey, and we're going to talk about how you are unstoppable. So even though we might have students who come in, all students come in with that invisible backpack. We don't know what they're coming in with. Maybe something happened on the bus. Maybe they didn't eat breakfast. Maybe something happened on their way to school or last night or whatever it might be. Sometimes we might feel as a teacher that we have to carry that baggage too, but we can help lift that off of our students and be there to support our students. We can give them hope, we can give them support, and we can be that place for them in our classroom. We can be that person for them in in our classroom. So it's really important to build those relationships as an unstoppable teacher and keep building those relationships, even though there's going to be times where we might need to repair our relationships. We're going to maintain our relationships with our students. Sometimes relationships might break, but we can always mend them back together with our students. So as a teacher, there's going to be a roller coaster ride, friends. We kind of already talked about that. You're going to have ups and downs and twists and turns and all those other things. And that is okay. It is perfectly normal. Just know that you if you can say I'm doing the best that I can, then that is okay. You're doing the best that you can with the resources that you have, that the knowledge that you have, with the experience that you have with that situation. Reach out to others for support and encouragement to help get you through, but you are unstoppable. You can do this. You can do this. You are a teacher. You are a teacher. And I think sometimes we go into the profession thinking, I'm going to change the world. But you know what? We might change the world for one student. And that, friends, is very powerful. That's very powerful. All right, so let's think about some reflection areas when we think about being unstoppable. When we think about being unstoppable, we want to make sure that we are continuing to reach out and grow and learn. So, what are some areas in which you are glowing and growing? What are some areas in which you want to continue to learn more about? What are some areas in which you're going to make a plan to get to those grow areas? So, for example, if you're not connected on social, having a teacher support group is really helpful. There's so many teachers out there ready to connect and help support you. So maybe that's an area in which you need to grow and make a little plan to do so. All right. And thinking about our unstoppable selves as teachers, we get to keep learning because it's just so fun. It's seriously, it is a lot of fun to keep learning and growing. But remember, just because you have that degree, that certification, for most of us, that certification, I know in Pennsylvania, our level 1 cert like goes away in 3 years. We need to keep learning and keep going to classes or attending webinars or going to conferences, whatever, or ed camps, whatever that might be, and get continuing professional development hours. Sometimes that's district provided, sometimes it's not. You have to go and explore these different areas. For some of our schools, it's built right into the new teacher mentor program. There's a local school where they bring their new teachers on and they help get them to level 2 certification. They do professional development. They make sure they have enough hours. It's really cool. So knowing that you have lots of areas to grow in as a teacher and keep honing your craft. If you're thinking about going on for certification or for a continued degree like a master's or anything like that, this is something to ask an employer. Do you help pay for continuing education? So for example, if you were in an interview and they asked, do you have any questions for us? You could say, in the next 3 years, I would love to explore getting a master's degree in special education, educational technology, insert your awesome area here. I was wondering, does your school help support teachers to continue their education? So not asking, do you pay for a master's, kind of phrasing it a little bit better there could be helpful. So think about so for our next part here, a couple reflection questions before we jump in to our getting a plan, because I think this one's really important. So whenever I first started teaching, my teaching journey, I graduated in May, and I thought I had interviews like down. I was like, oh, I'm going to get the first job. I'll be great. But honestly, friends, My job just wasn't posted yet, and that's okay. In August, I saw a placement, a posting for a multiple disabilities teacher, applied for it, and I was offered the job 2 weeks before school started. So I didn't have much prep time to be thinking about what is my classroom going to look like. I remember very vividly we were driving from Pittsburgh to Lancaster for a family reunion or something. I had a notebook and I was writing down all these ideas that were going through my head. Somebody else was driving. I was writing down all my ideas and thinking about what would my classroom look like? What are some things we're going to do? I did something very wrong in that reflection. I just focused on content. I thought through, I got all my months out, I'm thinking through content. I didn't start with relationships. So it's very important to start with relationships. How are you going to get to know your students, then work on procedures, and then work on content. So remember that, friends. So I want you to think about, if you have a job, if you're working on interviewing, or if you are starting your job search, think about what are some things that you would need to get done a month before school starts. And that could be something like, okay, let's say you have your job and you're thinking about, okay, I'm going to be teaching fifth grade reading. What do I need to have ready, a month before? Maybe you want to look at some student interest surveys for fifth graders. Maybe you want to look specifically hone down for reading in fifth grade. What are some things that kids are reading in fifth grade? Make sure you have a diversity of topics, authors, illustrators, all in that area, and be thinking about what are some things I need to get done in a month, and then narrow it down. And we're going to talk about a couple of other areas. So think about, we're going to start at the month view, and then we're going to work down to the week and think about more specifics as we go. So we know, whenever I was thinking about my classroom, and I'm sure you guys have thought about this too, what does my dream classroom look like? What's it going to feel like? How are my desks going to be arranged? What things are going to have on my wall? And those are important things, yes, but we need to start with those relationships. We need to start with getting to know our students as individuals that come into our classrooms, whether it's traditional, virtual, hybrid, whatever it might be, because who knows what the fall is going to bring. So we know that the classroom is so much more than just what does it look like? How does it feel? How am I going to get to know my students? How are my students going to feel when they come into my classroom? Those are all things to be thinking about. So it's important to start with a list. We're going to start with the month, go out to the week, and talk about some a little bit more specifics here. And then thinking about getting organized. Now, I have a podcast episode about organization, digital organization, actual stuff organization. And I think it's really important to think about your organization in buckets. So we're going to talk about that in just a minute when we get to that page. So think about, we're going to go back to that month view. What are some things you can start organizing now, a month out? So maybe you want to start looking at what resources you currently have in that topic area. What curriculum, what textbooks are they using? You're thinking about content specific stuff. What are some procedures you want to just start dabbling with? And how are you going to get to know your students? What are some fun ways you can start looking on social media and on Pinterest for fun ways people are getting to know their students in your grade level and in your subjects area? And then once you have like a little list there, think about what are some things you want to do before school starts, like a week before. Sometimes you can get in your building around this time. So sometimes you can have access to your classroom. Maybe it's just a few days before, if you're lucky, a week or a month. And that's something you want to ask whenever you sign that contract. Ask, when can I get in to see my classroom? When's the school's going to be open so I can get in and set up my classroom? So those are just some important things to be thinking about. But think about, whenever you're going in for that week, the week before school, what are some things you want to have ready to go? Maybe you want to have your student interest survey ready and made and on a QR code outside your classroom door as students come in. That'd be kind of cool. Maybe you want to have a variety of literature in your classroom. Maybe you want to have your tables or your desks set up in small groups, or tables set up around the classroom. Maybe having a comfy area in your classroom with like beanbag chairs and comfy chairs and blankets and pillows and all those good fun things. I know in my classroom, that's something I had, because we had students with multiple disabilities. So they had to be out of their chairs a little bit, moving around in different positions. So they weren't always in their wheelchairs. That was something important to have in my classroom. So be thinking about, what does your space look like? How are your students going to feel? And make it as student centered as possible. So some teachers, they don't put anything on their walls. They might just put like a little bulletin board of agenda or like important notes, those types of things. And the rest of the year, the students fill it up with stuff that they want. That's a really student driven classroom. You can have motivational posters, but remember, your students are spending as much time as, well, not as much time as you are. You're probably spending a lot more time in the classroom than they are, but they are spending a significant amount of time with you in that space. So how do they want it to look like? How do they want it to feel? I think that's always really important to get their perspective. So how are you going to keep things organized as a first year teacher? So I recommend this summer to be thinking about your first position kind of like, as we're going to talk about content specifically, kind of as buckets. So if you're teaching multiple subjects, if you're an elementary teacher, maybe teaching reading, math, science, social studies, you can have folders all with those different areas, and then look at the curriculum, look at the textbooks that you were provided with, and find resources that relate to that. You can find tons of already made teacher resources on tools like Nearpod, Pear Deck, Teacher Made, Class Kick. These are all great resources to find stuff already made by teachers that you can just edit and use, review it first. TPT, Teachers Pay Teachers, and Pinterest, yes, of course, are great resources too. You just want to make sure that you really look at what you're providing your students. So keeping things organized, maybe think about for your science, if you have a science textbook that you're working from, dividing folders up into chapters. Plants, animals, life cycles, ecosystems, habitats, whatever those chapters are, then you can start filling in those buckets as you go. So think of them as little buckets that you want to fill up, and spend a little bit of time. Don't spend like 8 hours on the computer looking up resources. Set a specific amount of time to do so, and look through some content and resources and kind of keep it organized in that way. Or if you don't have any chapter schemes, maybe you're going off of a theme. Each month has a different theme, separated by months. You can do something like that. But also, like, throughout your different organizational systems, you're going to want to have ways for students to have a voice and choice in that classroom. So think about, what are some ways you want students to be highlighted in that learning experience? So for example, if you're learning about life cycle of a butterfly or a frog or whatever that might be, you can have students, how do they want to show what they know? Do they want to do a test? Do they want to do a presentation? Do they want to write a video or make a video, write a blog post, do a podcast, whatever that might be? So keeping things organized, that's a great way for digital. For our actual stuff that we have, oh my goodness. In the podcast, one guest mentioned, have lots of bins. You can sort your stuff. And guys, it's okay if you throw stuff away. You might go into a classroom like I did my first year. There were boxes and boxes on tops of tables. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming. I just threw it all away. It was all like old books and stuff. I was like, I'm just going to put that away. And it's okay to purge and to get rid of stuff as you start to teach. You're like, I haven't used this in forever. That's okay. Also, for your digital resources, there's a really cool app called Office Lens. You can capture handouts, workbooks, all sorts of things, textbooks, pages, pictures, and you can take a picture of it, cleans it up, and makes it into a Word doc or a picture. So that's another neat tool for digital organization. All right, classroom routine and procedures. This is such a big topic. So we think about routine and procedures. This is going to look different for our elementary, our middle, and our secondary friends. But overall, be thinking about some different procedures that happen in the classroom. What are the expectations? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? So if you can describe these different routines and procedures. So for example, what do students do if they miss a class, if they turn in an assignment late, if they get done early, if they have to go to the restroom? Are they allowed to have a water bottle in the class? Are they, what's the cleaning procedure? What does it, and really like describe, like, for yourself, what does this look like? And then you want to be consistent across your classes. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What does it sound like? All those things. You want to just really describe it, and let students know what those expectations are. For some teachers, the first day of class, they have a little class contract that has, for our students, like in our younger grades, for our class is kind, respectful, and responsible. And then they talk about, what does that look like? What does respect sound like? How do I know I'm giving respect to somebody? That type of stuff. So really describing it for our learners and being clear and consistent in those expectations with our students. This is a great spot to be thinking about those expectations. Those were just a few listed there. You guys can be thinking about for our classroom. Another one might be, where do I go to find the class recordings, especially in our virtual learning environment? Where do I go to post my assignment, to submit my assignment? What do I do if I come in late? What do I do if I have to leave early? All these different things to be thinking about. And then keeping our students organized. This is always a great one. There's tons of methods that we can think about for helping our students stay organized. Now, for some of our students with IEPs, they might have different ways that they're working on with a special ed teacher to stay organized, or self-checks or reflection, those types of things. But you can always help your students stay organized, and model that for them. For example, having spots for them for guided notes, having spaces for them to reflect on the lesson that they're learning about, whether it's digital organization or like physical stuff organization. Have them have a folder, or you can provide a folder for them. Put, here's all of my turned in stuff, here's all my stuff that needs done. So just something as simple as that, showing them tools like Office Lens to take a picture of their homework, and they can submit it on the learning management system, or for that Office Lens example in specifically with Office Lens, you can take a picture of a worksheet and it'll actually like read aloud the text for our students. So that provides lots of individual help for them. So helping students stay organized with their physical stuff, maybe have a daily schedule for students up on the board. Here's what's our homework for today. Have them like get in the habit of writing down, here's my homework. I have to read chapter 3 and I have to do problems 1 through 5. Help them get into that routine of getting organized from the start, which will really be helpful for them, adulting skills. And then thinking about, how is our classroom, when we think about getting a plan, how is your classroom going to be not only a space where our students want to come, because we want our students to be able to get into our classrooms, be like, I want to go to your class today. I'm really excited to attend your class or be there, or whatever it might be. And then how can we make it functional, informative, and fun? All those different areas for all of our learners. We want learning to be accessible for all of our learners. So some ways to help it be a fun, functional space for our students is building relationships not only with you and the student, but students and students, having them build collaborative peer relationships and connecting with them through small little things you can do throughout the semester. Or throughout the 9 weeks, sorry. So for example, doing things like stand up if you have a cat, stand up if you're wearing red, stand up if you're doing, making just small little connections. If your favorite movie is Moana, I don't know, whatever it might be. And you can have just students make little connections or just small little things in the moments throughout the day, and show students that we're more alike than different. We want to also make sure our space is accessible for all of our learners. We have enough space between our desk and our materials, or all of our materials and resources at a height where all of our students can access. They can all go over and get a pair of scissors. They can all go over and get a piece of paper. Do they know where all the materials are located? That's also really important. Do they know where they need to turn in their assignments? So thinking about it as a space that everybody can thrive and learn in is a great mindset to be thinking about when we're thinking about our space. So remember, we haven't talked about making our stuff Pinterest pretty. We've talked about making it accessible, fun, and functional, and have students have a say. And what this classroom looks like, because it is their learning space as well. All right, so another part of getting a plan, I wish I learned this my second year as well. I was one of those teachers that went in at like 7 a.m. and didn't leave till 5 p.m. And there was always stuff to do. I remember I had on the podcast Brent Cooley, and he shared, Sam, my first year, I was the same way. I'd go in at 7, I'd leave at 4 or 5. And at one point I'm standing in front of the copier making all these copies. And I just this thought just dawned on me. I could stay here till 11 o'clock and I'd still have stuff to do tomorrow. I'm going home. And I was like, yes, that is a great moment to think about, because there's always going to be stuff to do. But Do not be that person like me that went in 7 a.m. and stayed late, because you know what? You're burning the candle at both ends. And we need to be able to invest in ourselves so we can invest in others, not just our students, but also our families and our friends. We have lives outside of teaching. I know. It might be hard to think about what we do. We really do. So take time for you. Yes, you are a professional educator, but you're also a person with needs, and you got to take care of yourself. So pick one or the other, either go in early or stay late, and then pick one day that you're going to leave when your contract time is over, like 3:30 or 3 o'clock. Pack up your stuff and go. And if you need help doing that, find a buddy to do it with you. Be like, okay, teacher next door, we're going to leave at 3:30 every Wednesday. I'm going to come in your room, 3:29, we're packing up. Let's go. And I think that's really important to be able to build that into your week. So, you're home early. You can go for a walk. You can go get that extra Starbucks coffee, whatever you need to do to invest in yourself. And then when you do go to school and you say you're going to go early, or you're going to go in, you're going to stay late that day, or you're going to work during your new something specific during your prep, have a plan. What are the 3 things you need to get done today? Now, not during that hour that you came in early, but what 3 things do you need to get done today? Okay, maybe you need to email that one parent back. You need to make enough copies for your next science lesson, 6th period, and you need to enter grades for your English final. Whatever you have to do, list those 3 things, and then make a plan. Okay, I'm going to set a timer. I'm going to set the time for 20 minutes. I'm going to respond to that email. Great, cross that off. Now, what else do you need to do? Okay, I need to put in my grades and I need to make copies. Oh, I can go make copies right now. Let's go do that. So you're setting timers and you're being really intentional about your time. You're not just going in, staring at a desk and like, oh my gosh, there's so much to do. I don't even know where to start. Starting to feel some of that anxiety, that excitement, and that overwhelm. Have a plan, go in to that working time with a plan. I so wish I knew that before, whenever I was a new teacher, because I would go in and be like, "Oh, I have to do this, and I have to," and that I felt like I did a lot, but I didn't get a lot done. So you want to make sure that there's a difference there. And then the last thing we're going to talk about today is remembering your why. So remember how we talked about your teaching journey is going. I mean, when you start college, I think we think our teaching journey is going to go one way. This is it. I'm just going to do this and it's going to be great. But for me, my teaching journey started, I was like, I'm going to be the best first grade teacher that I can be. And I started as an elementary ed major. And then I added on special ed, and I found, you know what, special ed is where my heart is. I love this. So I'm going to be the best special ed teacher I'm going to be. And then it transitioned to, I'm going to once I was a first year teacher and I taught there for a couple years, I started doing some professional development for the teachers in our school as a second and third year teacher. I'm like, okay, I see you, ed tech. I'm liking this. I'm liking this. So I started to explore, well, how does ed tech and special ed go together? How can I bring these 2 passion areas? So I started to get certified, master's degrees and things like that. And that really helped me to move a little bit more. Now, how is ed tech and special ed working together? And now where I'm at, and I never thought whenever I was a freshman in college that I would be a professor teaching future teachers all about ed tech and special ed. So your why and your journey is going to change. And it's okay, as long as you remember why you're doing it. Why are you impacting students? Why are you impacting that school? And why are you impacting that district? And I truly, truly believe this last one, that teachers are world global impactors. You guys can make a difference in the world by sharing out your ideas, resources, strategies, things that you're doing, because everyone needs that little bit of brilliance that's inside you that you might not think, oh, everybody knows how to do that. Oh, we might not. You need to share out that great idea, that awesome thing that you made, that resource that you created with other educators, because we are lifelong learners. We want to learn it from you as well. So your why, think about, why are you impacting your students in your classroom? And remember that that might change, and it is okay. So hold on to that why. Write it down on a sticky, put it on your computer, put it next to you so you can see it, and remember your why. Because when you have those hard days, you're going to need to see that. And it's okay. Remember your why. So think about some ways to be thinking about that on those tough days. Who inspires you? What kind of teacher do you want to be like? Is there a specific teacher that you aspire to be, or to that you're inspired by, that you're motivated by? Write down some of those things whenever you look at that. Like, okay, I'm sure this person had tough days too. and I'm going to get through it just like they did. And it's okay. Think about motivational quotes or educational quotes or things that drive your philosophy of teaching. Write those down. Is it a verse or a lyric or a quote? Write those down because I think those have lots of power as well. And then think about self-care. How can you care for yourself whenever you have those tough days? How can you uplift yourself and help yourself keep going? Remembering that there's going to be tough days and it's going to be okay. You're going to get through it. Those are just pit stops. We're going to keep moving along our teaching journey. So let's recap really quick. We talked about setting our expectations for ourselves as learners, leaders, and teachers. Our expectations might not be the same expectations that we had crossing that stage of graduation or the same expectations we had for ourselves as we are studying to be teachers, and that's okay. Know that your first year it's going to be tough, but it's going to be great too. You're going to have amazing experiences. You're going to learn so much and you're going to reflect upon that as well. You're going to have days that it's not going to be a walk in the park. Our disappointments will happen, but remember, they're pit stops. We're not going to stay long. We're just going to keep on going and we're going to learn from that experience and know that you are unstoppable. You're going to keep learning, growing, and glowing in all that you do in your classroom because teaching is truly the best profession on the planet and you get to keep learning and growing. It's so much fun. And we're going to get our plan together. We're going to talk about how can we build our relationships with our students, plan out those procedures and how are we going to include student choice and voice in our classrooms. When I think about this one, I always think about my friend Heather Michelle, who shares relationships first, procedures second, content third. And we need to keep that in mind always. She shares a story on the podcast about how she was with a first year teacher, a graduate that she had. And she's like, oh, Dr. Michelle, I just can't get my content across to my students. I just can't. They're not getting it. They're not getting it. And she's like, did you get to know them first? Do you know how this content can relate to their real life or why it's important for them? She goes, no, I didn't. And that's the one, oh man, I focused on those procedures that first day of school. We talked about all of our procedures and how we do this and how we do that and what our routine is, but I didn't get to know them as individuals. And as soon as she made that change, student first, relationship first, procedure second, content third, there was a flip and it worked. And it's amazing to see those connections with our students between students and with teacher and student. And then remembering your why, keeping that forefront and focused and knowing that it's going to change. But as long as you're there for students to be the best that you can for students, that's all that matters. Keep your why in mind and keep it focused. And friends, if you want to learn more about any of these, we go into a lot more depth. You can check out the book, EduMagic Shine On, A Guide for New Teachers. So I'm going to thank you so much. We have a few more minutes left for questions, comments, resource sharing, whatever you guys would like to do. I'd love to open it up for any questions that you guys have. And I'm going to stop talking and take a little drink here.
Thanks, Dr. Sam. So I do see a question here from Catherine. And just a reminder to all, the session is being recorded and will be available to all of you. So might need to circle back and listen to the recording for the answer to this question, but I'm going to give Dr. Sam a chance to perhaps reiterate. So she's asking, what were a few of those resources you listed? She's talking about the Get a Plan Together and content. Yeah. Besides Teachers Pay Teachers, TPT, and Pinterest, she said, I didn't get all those. Could you please list a few of them again?
Of course, Catherine. Yeah, so there's lots of free resources out there. So I'll try to name them a little bit slower. ClassKick, and TeacherMade. Those are two resources that have libraries, PDFs, worksheets, all those types of things made by teachers for teachers. Wizer, WIZER. They same deal, lots of resources separated by subject area and grade level that you can just grab and use. Now I will caution some of them, you need to make sure that they are free. look at the freebies because I think as new teachers, we got to specialize in free. Common Sense Media has amazing resources as well. What's really cool about Common Sense Media, they have ratings and reviews by teachers and parents, but you can go in and look to see top tech tools for 2020 and 2021. And I'll actually go through, tell you what cool tech tools there are and how to use them in the classroom and what their ratings are by teachers. So that's a cool resource to keep up to date with all kinds of cool technology. But some other ones like Nearpod and Pear Deck, those also have great already made presentations and resources for you to use as well. The Common Sense Media and I think it's Nearpod, they both partnered together to create digital citizen curriculum for K to 12. So that's a really cool resource there. There's another one. What was it? We talked about Wiser, TeacherMate, ClassKick, Nearpod, Pear Deck. Oh, Edpuzzle. Edpuzzle also has some really cool videos that you can use. What Edpuzzle does is you can have videos and then you can like have it like stop at like a minute and have students reflect on that question or ask them a question, so it won't let them continue on in the video until they've reflected on it. So they've already made stuff, or you can make your own. You can make your own on all of those resources, but there's also already made teacher materials there. And then make sure you check like your curriculum provider. Sometimes they have like resources that go along with the text too. Thank you so much, Tim. Thanks so much for writing those down. That was really helpful.
My pleasure. And you're welcome, Catherine. So it looks like there may not be any other questions at this time, but again, want to thank you so much, Dr. Sam, for sharing so much great information, some things to prepare new teachers as they begin, and then just make sure that they reflect and navigate successfully that first year and those first few years.
Yes. Yes. You're so welcome. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Tim, for hosting again.
Absolutely. So attendees, we hope to see you on June 10th for our virtual job fairs for teachers. Employers from across the country can't wait to discuss their employment opportunities with you. Thanks again, Dr. Sam. Thanks to all of you.